was, once there was, and once there was not. Once there was a village and a boy, and this boy loved nothing more than at the end of the day, when he had the opportunity to gather in the home of some of the elders and listen to the stories. He would come as often as he could, every night if he could, and he would sit transfixed on these stories. He'd close his eyes and he would just let them wash over him. He loved the stories, and he loved the elders, the storytellers. Well, as he grew, he eventually became a young man. And he still loved the stories, and he still gathered every chance he had in the home of one of the elders to listen to the stories, the same stories that he'd heard for years and years. One evening, as he sat lost in the story, his concentration was broken when he heard his name. He opened his eyes and he looked around, and there was the elder looking straight at him. And the elder said, "We have watched you grow with these stories. You have listened for years and years. And not only have you grown, but the stories have grown within you. Now it is your turn. Tell us a story." Well, the young man stood up and he looked around and goes, I can't do this. I just can't. I don't know where to start. The elder smiled and he said, "Oh, that's the easy part. They all start the same. Once there was, and once there was not." It simply means that what's true for one person might be true for another, but not a third. Or what happened to one person may happen to a second, but not to a third. So begin. The young man kind of shook himself out a little bit, took a deep breath, and he began. He says, once there was. Oh, I can't do this. What if I forget the words? Said the elder, "Not to worry. A story is like a letter. It comes to you from the past. You add your words to it and you send it on to the future. Now then." Okay. Once there was. I can't do this. He says, I just can't do this. I can't even read. How can I tell a story? The elder smiled again and he says, "Not to worry. I can't read either. Those who read keep their stories locked in books. Those who tell keep them in their hearts. So begin." He goes, "I can't do it. I just can't do it." And he started to sit down. Well, the elder looked at him, and this time there was not a smile on his face. And he didn't say with cheerfulness in his voice. He said, "Those who listen to stories but don't tell are like those who pick the fruit of the apple tree but don't prune its branches. Like those who dream but never do anything. Tell us a story, or you must leave." Well, he stood there and he looked around, and he did not want to leave. That was one thing he knew for sure. He looked there and he saw the young boys, and he remembered it wasn't all that long ago that he was one of these youngsters sitting there, and they were looking at him with expectation. And he looked at the elders that he'd loved for all these years. And so he took a deep breath and he said, once there was, and once there was not. And so he began.